Let's swim through some garbage. And let's start with a hot piece of garbage that you delivered us this week.
Well, it's all garbage, really.
Always is. So, and I had already seen this when you put this in here. There was obviously I don't want to say obviously, but there was the neo-Nazis that were on the bridge near the clearly predominantly black neighborhood. And they came out, and, everyone saw the news about that, but then you shared the body cam, yeah?
Yes.
Body cam.
Yep.
So you go ahead and drive the conversation, because you were the one that put this in here, so go ahead and...
Yeah, I mean, obviously, first and foremost, neo-Nazis are fucking losers.
Oh, trash bag human beings. They will burn in hell.
Easiest comment of my life, for sure.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this is no safe space. They will burn in hell. Absolutely. Go ahead.
A little Pastor Cy coming through.
Well, it's just no safe space for neo-Nazis. Like, that's good to make that clear. I agree with you.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah. Well, because I'm going to defend them slightly, which is always feels bad, right?
I'm actually going to probably do the same thing, so keep going.
Yeah, so I've just seen, so I occasionally browse, like, Reddit, just the popular page. I also get in the weeds as far as, like, just AP or Reuters. Sometimes Yahoo News, just because, like, I'm also a comment section
feed
weirdo.
all the information into your brain and sift through it, including the Yahoo garbage.
Well, just also people's response to it. And I kept seeing this sentiment of... I don't know, just like so.
Oh, to the story specifically, the response?
Yes.
Gotcha.
So just to summarize, this is Cincinnati. There were some fucking loser neo-Nazis who pulled up in a U-Haul, which apparently is their MO. I don't know why they're always in a
human beings.
U-Haul. But so they're on an overpass for some expressway, and they're flying their fucking swastika flags.
Chubby ass white boys. Keep going.
Yeah, right. Behold the master race, and they always just look like
that's
losers,
always the thing online, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So somebody catches wind of this, because obviously they're standing on a fucking overpass. So somebody whose exit is right there maybe texts a neighbor. Word gets around that people are flying just black and red fucking swastika flags. So the neighborhood turns out. And there is already a police presence, because I assume whoever this group is, I mean, we've seen them before. They're somewhat organized, obviously. And technically they're demonstrating, they're protesting. So maybe they had like a cop with them. And then when the police started to see a crowd gather, they were like, all right, well, this might be an issue. So more police come, they're sort of keeping the group separate, and then the neo-Nazis fuck off in their U-Haul.
Yep.
And a lot of the sentiment I saw particularly in this, I can't remember, maybe it was the body cam, it might have been another video, but regardless, there were comments up at the top that are like, cops protecting them is crazy work. This video is very telling of who the police are here.
Those aren't wrong either, but keep going.
Law enforcement should have stood back and let them handle it.
I don't know about that one. That one's tough. Last one's tough.
Are you saying the first two are...
Hey, listen, there's two truths.
I'm not saying
I need everyone to know that in life, but go ahead, keep going. If you want me to take it away for a little bit, I can, but go ahead.
So are you coming out right now and saying that the Cincinnati Police Department is...
Let me say something simply about the whole thing, and then let's see what you think. To put it quite simply, in a vacuum, yes, neo-Nazis are allowed to demonstrate, because that is free speech. That is correct. That's correct.
Yep.
Like, that is just correct. But we don't live in a vacuum, right? And I think with the body cam footage especially, probably this might have come from the body cam footage, or maybe it came from any of them, but I would think body cam. Because think about the same kind of protesting, but with black people. The police wouldn't be the same, man. That's always the issue. That's always going to be the issue that makes sense to me coming from that direction. They don't get the same, black people can't just protest and not like... I remember there was like, I can't remember it was a real life thing where a bunch of white people marched with their guns in some rural area in this country years ago. I'd have to look it up. I wish I could, because I'm going to talk out of my asshole, but here we are. A bunch of white people did some like march with guns years ago. And it was, I hate to say a bunch of people marching with guns is peaceful, but like nothing happened, right? They marched, they were whatever, like gun rights, even though they could already wave that shit around like the dumbasses they are. I don't know.
Open
okay, in the same town, black people did it, and the cops were right on them in a heartbeat. So, how do you feel about that? Because I kind of know where you're going with it, where it's just like, hey, like, like they're allowed to have their free speech, which is correct. But would it be the same if it was a bunch of black people kind of protesting? It's tough. It's tough. Go ahead.
I mean, sure, I understand the sentiment of what you're saying. I don't know that, the Cincinnati Police Department would treat, let's say, a black supremacist. Let's go to the worst fucking opposite, a black supremacist group protesting. I can't just assume that the Cincinnati Police Department isn't going to do the same thing for them as far as just protecting sort of a perimeter where they could protest.
Right.
I get what you're saying. I understand the sentiment. It's definitely treated differently. I mean, there's always a little quip that I see about Black Panthers in the, I don't even know when that was sort of prevalent, 70s or 80s. When they started marching around open carrying is when legislation came in about okay, who can actually wield in public? Like, do we really want citizens open carrying? Right? Like, it was treated differently. And I'm not saying that that's not the case now, but I was not going to assume that.
I don't even. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I don't even. A neo-Nazi could look me in my face and say, I'm allowed to be a neo-Nazi. And if after that statement they say, but also I do support black people's rights to demonstrate the same amount as us. And if they said that in a good faith way, which let's be honest here, but if they did say that in a good faith way, that's fine. I'm not going to hate you. I'm not going to try to destroy you. I'm not going to feel feelings about you because you're saying things that maybe I don't agree with, but you're also giving space to other things. So it's just okay. Do you agree with that? I feel like you would, but
yeah, of course.
Right. So, yeah.
I don't know. It's just I hate to see because here's the thing, we can't take what's intolerable and sacrifice principles that are genuinely good in nature, right? Like we were chatting right before we started the podcast. A local story for us where somebody went out, they took justice into their own hands. They took a metal pipe and beat a sexual predator to death because they knew where they lived. Blah, blah, blah. I don't know if you understood the nature of that person's crimes, whatever. But
didn't know him besides looking him up, right?
Right. But let's say he's the worst fucking pedophile in the world. You can be sympathetic to that guy just being beat to death in his home.
Of course you can.
But we can't live by those rules because we understand that those rules are there for a reason.
Right.
And those principles are sound. You have to be brought in front of a jury. You have to be given a trial. You have to be you pay your sentence, and let's say you get out of jail. You've been, here you are, you're reformed, or at the least you've paid your debt to society.
Yep.
We don't get to just, because the sentiment feels good, you don't get to just sacrifice the principles that are there for a very good reason. Yep. So I don't know. I hate to see, because these comments here, I don't know if you've got the doc up, but these 3 comments here.
Yeah, I guess I'll try to think through them even more. Cops protecting them is crazy work. Did they protect them? I thought did they tell them to leave? Maybe they think they are because they told
protected them.
They did.
There was a crowd. Okay. I don't know if you actually watched the body cam video, but that crowd was going to descend on the people on that bridge, and hands were going to be exchanged for sure.
Well, or maybe they would just tuck and run once the people descended. But you don't want to test that as the police. We get that. We understand that.
The intention of the crowd was to run these people off, which is
right.
Again,
of course. Dude, I would join the crowd too. I'd have been like, "Let's go." I don't give a shit. You know
we can be sympathetic to that, but we have to understand that they do have that right.
Yes.
They have that right to do that thing. That awful, terrible, heinous.
Correct.
Fuck these people. They have that right to be there.
Yeah. You'd like to think in the long run, people exposing their hatred outwardly, we let them, and then they look like idiots, so it doesn't help them. Right. We'd like to think. I don't know that that's how that works in the internet age. I think the jury's still out, and it's tricky as F, but to say the least with what's going on in the last few years. Right. But yeah. You'd like to think so.
You unfortunately you have to some degree tolerate intolerance as just a principle of people are allowed to air their views out in a public space.
Right.
But again, you can be sympathetic to dude, I would have loved to see some of these people's just fucking masked punched through.
Right. And also, society. Let me bring a historical element to it. you're right when you said that, but that is true in a sense where we live in a society where people are not being actively like segregated against or separated. Like we don't right now. So meaning like they have a right. We have to tolerate the intolerant as far as demonstrating, but
Correct.
obviously like actually like discriminating is not acceptable. Not acceptable. So right. So, but yes, you're right. You're right. Demonstration is just demonstration. Like it is what it is. Just is what it is, and they can do it.
I just hate to I just hate to see the sentiment justified or at least popularized. I don't like that. I understand.
Right. That's why you want to see the guy in the front who's chirping him, punch him straight in the mask. No doubt.
Right, because dude, you're holding a fucking a swastika flag, chirping black
it's
folks.
crazy.
Should get punched in the face, but like we can't live in a society that's like that.
You know what? To be a fly, like, how do you think these guys organize? To be a fly on the wall. There was some big piece, I can't remember where, ProPublica, I think. ProPublica is excellent, by the way. They did some piece at the end of last year on some guy who, like, infiltrated right-wing groups out in the West. So it's just, like, these guys feel so able to be that close to a neighborhood of fuck around and find out people, and they still have the confidence to go out there and do that. Where are these guys meeting? To be a fly on the wall in their meetings, to hear like what gives them such confidence. Like, what are we doing? I understand that maybe an election that might have happened last year in a country that we may or may not live in maybe embolden them a little bit, but to do that, like, what do you think? Any thoughts? This seems crazy.
It is crazy. I do want to understand the impulse of people like this, because like,
right?
What are you really accomplishing besides creating outrage?
Exactly.
I don't really.
Yep.
Like nobody's going to. Here's my thing. I'm driving on the freeway. I'm going to work. I see a bunch of people with swastika flags. Yep. In my mind, I don't think there's anybody that goes, "Huh, maybe there's something to Nazism."
No.
Maybe those people do have a genuine
right.
gripe. What is the point of demonstrating like that besides just being a force for confrontation for the sake of confrontation? I don't know.
Because that's what it feels like. Yeah.
These people definitely organize on just groups online. Telegram would be my guess.
Yeah. I didn't mean where. I know where. I meant more. What are these guys talking about that give them such hubris to be out in the open with just the most disgusting views that you could have? It's like,
I think at the core of these, I feel like at the core of people like this, they hate themselves, and they found an outward way to dispense of that hatred.
It's just like the biggest anti-homo politician you know from any country ends up running out of a male brothel house from like some male gangbang. You know, it's projection. Yeah. But I agree with that. Yeah. It's just crazy. Yeah. When me and you, I think when people crazy. Like me and you, I don't want to speak for you. I'll just speak for me. When someone like me sits there and thinks to myself, like, I cannot come up with a scenario where I am confident enough to say, yeah, I support murdering a group of people. Like, what? Are you fucking stupid? Like, it's just the smoothest brain you've ever seen.
Just for the sake of who your parents are.
I think the way that me and you approach it to have a healthy... Because it takes a real adult to say, I hate them, but as long as they demonstrate, they do have that right. Those are the kind of people that I think you'd have to work for it, but could sit down with someone like that and somewhat pry into their mind. Because you need to, you cannot interview someone who's an extremist in an adversarial way at all, but you don't want to give up if you're thinking of it from a journalistic viewpoint, you don't want to give up that integrity. So you really need someone who's skilled at making. Who's Louis Theroux? You've seen his stuff over the years?
Yeah.
Great, right?
Westbrook Baptist Church was that's one of my favorite documentaries.
He does a great job, right? But it's a skill. You have to be that kind of person that can thread that needle. Oh yeah.
You know who does somewhat of a good job at that? Who is like super grassroots and online and
Channel 5. Channel 5.
Channel 5. Now, regardless of the fucking weird, there's a little bit of a weird thing there about like certain allegations, but taking
Oh
just
no,
his.
I didn't know. Oh man, all right, keep going. Just
Yeah.
keep going.
Yeah. Let's not touch on that. Let's
Right.
move fast.
I will have to
But
look
he
myself.
definitely
Yeah.
gives me the Louis Theroux. Like
Definitely.
he knows how to disarm anybody. So you could be the most hateful person in the world, and like maybe it's the goofy ass suit he wears, but like he's very disarming. And like you feel like you can just be honest.
I think with him, the suit is part of the shtick, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you're wearing. You do have to be skilled at it in the first place. I think the suit helps him, but because Louis Theroux just dressed like Louis Theroux just like dressed like a 30-year-old dad the whole time, and like or like a 40-year-old.
For sure. He's also like British and just like,
British.
Inquisitive.
Yep.
He doesn't ask like attacking sorts of questions necessarily. Right. Certainly not out of the gate. So he just gets.
And also that you do another part of the equation is you do have to go, but both of them do a good job of this. You have to go to places where people are already public about it. You can't, who knows all the trillions of private thoughts all of us have, and most of us never share. So you still have to go to but he goes, Andrew Callahan? Yes. He goes to conventions or like a rally. And Louis Theroux kind of did the same thing. His is a little bit different, and maybe
he's
even
different. Yeah,
he's even a little bit deeper with his work. But still, Westboro was very public already, so it's not like
Yeah,
so
that's a great documentary,
they're good at what they do.
By the way.
That is, I've seen it. Oh yeah,
there's so much insight there, because you can tell some of the people they are calculated. They know that they're being awful, but then a lot of the people just think they're doing what they think is the right thing to do, which is wild. Imagine protesting a veteran's funeral, right? Like, in what world?
It's deep-seated. It's deep projection from somewhere, like you said.
It's nuts.
With them, I don't know what it is. Maybe they hate themselves. Yeah. Probably they hate. I don't know, man. But yeah, it's tough. It's tough. Let me end this topic. I'll circle it back to it. Think about this. We can say, when it comes to law enforcement, we can say they should be unbiased. They should always just be following the letter of the law, blah, 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 this and that. But it does not work in reality when you have human beings who are always biased. So that is, I think, ultimately with the police, the biggest hill that is society still has to climb a bunch, where I don't how do you grapple with the fact that they're still biased, but what can you do to make it as good as it can be? Because you should never just give up and let cops. I see horror stories all the time of corridors in certain parts of the country where they're just kind of like taking money from people because they can legally, like whatever. They're just like,
oh sure,
dude, they can go power trip, and we all know it. Like whatever.
Small town cops are going to be the biggest because there's less oversight. Right. You're going to find the most corruption.
They can power trip easily, so that's the thing. It's like, especially as you think about it from a multicultural society standpoint, it's like, how do we get a police force that is as unbiased as possible when human beings are inherently biased? Yeah.
I think, and again, just to sort of wrap this up, but I think the biggest positive that came out of the George Floyd movement was the standardization of a lot of body cams.
Yes, just have body cams, bro.
It protects the public. It even protects honest police, right? Like even those instances where, say, somebody got taken into custody and they made a lot of allegations, and it's your word versus theirs. But yeah, so it's body cams, and I think FOIA requests, Freedom of Information Act requests, have made policing much better. And is it perfect? Absolutely not. No system with human beings acting in any capacity in it is going to be perfect. You're going to find flaws every single time.
Boy, do you remember what was it, like a year or two ago? Body cam caught like some black lady getting straight up shot in her house. She was like carrying soup in a pot. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. It wasn't even soup. It was hot water. It was hot water. Yeah.
It was horrible to watch. I think it was over the fact that she like religiously rebuked him, so he took offense to it. He must be religious or something. And I'm like, wow, like really? She said in Jesus' name or something, dude. Anyways,
say that.
Body cams.
Yeah, you're remembering it correctly. She
body cams everywhere.
She had picked it up. She had picked a pot up of hot water. Didn't necessarily look like she was gonna throw it, and she was like, "In Jesus' name, I rebuke you." And he said, "Drop it," and then fucking just gunned her down. Dude, and I do think body cams they make things more complicated, but in a good way, because we can actually understand as the public what went on. Now you can still be fooled
What do you mean
about
it makes
like
more complicated? What?
does make more absolutely it makes it more complicated.
What do you? I don't
because
understand
before,
what you mean by that.
well, before it was one word versus the other. Now it is here is a literal visual.
Why does that make it more complicated? That feels like it makes it better. I'm so confused.
It makes it better in obvious circumstances. It makes it complicated in complicated circumstances.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yes, it does. I mean,
Because I will say,
use the same word to describe the word, but yes, I do. I'm following you.
not
I think more often than not,
a
a good rule of life is, and tell me if you think this is dumb as shit, because that's fine. I'll accept it and eat it. A good rule of life is like that crazy shit, that kind of crazy shit doesn't happen all the time. This is where conspiracies are born out of. So you're probably with body cam still gonna catch non-crazy shit, but obviously you get the actual video, so there's no bullshit.
Well, let me ask you this: how many people? Because when Floyd got murdered, or
nope, that's the correct way to say
inadvertently
it.
killed,
Stop
after you
it.
fucking
He was murdered.
have
Go
a
ahead.
perspective, after your perspective is, Derek Chauvin did have a body cam, and I'll say this right now.
Yeah.
It was very obvious that people didn't necessarily agree on what had happened.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Whereas, let's say there's
So-
no body cam, and
No,
it's a blip on the
right.
radar.
No, I know.
People
I
don't
know.
respond to it because we don't.
The video
witness-
creates more of a revolutionary reaction with the protesting and stuff, because you see it, it's visceral, like it's way
Right.
yeah. No, I agree.
Things don't go unseen.
Let's
They
be
go
clear, though.
viral.
Let me make the case for murdered. Can I
It's
make the
better,
case,
though, just
Can
to
I
be
make the
clear,
case for
body
murdered,
cams-
and then we'll move on? Let me make the case for murdered, and we'll move on. Okay.
Yeah, I love it.
Here's
Yeah,
the
go
case, and
ahead.
it's really short. You know me, I'm clear and concise, baby. We're not sitting here bullshitting like the right wing
Okay.
does. Fucking
That's right.
Jordan Peterson talking to you about it. Anyways.
Word salad.
Man,
not here.
man was
Murders
being.
up-
Let me hang on. Here we go. Man was being
Yeah,
arrested for what? What was he being arrested for?
counterfeit bill.
Do you think anybody in any circumstance should ever be handled by the police for that kind of crime in a way that they even come close to dying? Yes or no?
So here's where I'm going to play devil's advocate.
Oh, okay. Now we get it. Okay.
Because your crime doesn't matter if you fight the police.
It still does. No.
The
So
crime
that's.
is,
But I
second the
totally
police try
disagree
to
with that.
Arrest you, and something happens. Now it's you versus the cop.
No, I totally disagree with that, because even if I grant you, and no, this will be fun. Even if I grant you that, yes, now you deserve to be like charged more, maybe even handled in a certain way. You cannot.
Sure.
You have a responsibility as a police officer to understand that no matter what is happening, even resisting arrest, does not ever allow you to stray into the realm of killing someone. Even if they get away and you have to rearrest them and that's fine. But there's something about that is disgusting to me. And I would hope that, I don't know. I was gonna say I hope most people agree with me, but I shouldn't say that about that. It's my opinion. But yeah, it's something about that's disgusting to me. Like, no, you
Listen.
should not. Like, you go ahead.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But
Okay.
the training was the knee in the back of the neck. It was inadvertent.
Change the training. That's fucking terrible.
Malice.
Okay.
There was no malice. It was a knee in the back of the neck because of the training. It's a way of keeping somebody subdued.
Okay. You know what? Me and you are gonna go join that
Right?
that bridge in. Oh, anyways. All right.
But you see what I'm
Alright.
saying is there's always
look.
an angle. There's
I-
always
I-
an angle.
I still, of course, there's, because there's two sides to every story. It's in the same vein as there's two truths to everything too, a little bit, right? I do grant that, like, yeah, look, if you're counterfeiting things and you broke the law, and you're resisting an arrest that is legally should be done, then yeah, you should be charged with more. Like that, all that is fine to me, fine. But I don't understand how him dying is ever acceptable. That's unacceptable.
Right.
That's unacceptable. Like, all right.
And I think if you're not, no, just to be clear, I'm not defending Derek Chauvin.
No,
I
I
was just
know,
trying to make
I
a
know.
point.
I
I was just trying to make a
understand.
point there, but
I also started it by being like, let me make the case, like a little comment, like, you know, scum.
right. Well, I'm not gonna not, play
No,
devil's advocate.
that's how we have fun with it, no doubt.